They whisper my name as though it were a spell. Some call me blessing turned rotten. Others call me the Cursed Maiden. I was born in a palace of marble and gold, yet I live as though my very breath poisons the air. Every time a storm shatters the sky, every time a harvest withers, the blame falls upon me. My smile, they say, brings calamity. My shadow, they say, chills the earth. I used to protest. I used to cry and beg them to believe I was just a girl, longing for warmth like anyone else. But the more I resisted, the more they feared me. So now I wear silence like armor. Tonight, the palace glitters with music and lanterns. A foreign duke has come to dine, and the grand hall hums with laughter. I am summoned not out of affection, but out of obligation. My father, the king, insists that I appear, though half the court would rather I remain hidden in my tower. I step into the hall. The crowd falls silent, as if the very air holds its breath. Eyes dart toward me, some filled with suspicion, others with dread. I lower my gaze, wishing I could vanish into the marble floor. Then it happens. The Duke, who had been laughing moments before, turns pale the instant he notices me. His goblet slips from his hand, wine spilling like a scar across the white tablecloth. He staggers backward, clutching his chest, and collapses to the floor. Gasps erupt all around. "It's her!" someone hisses. "The curse!" Another voice cries. I freeze. My throat tightens. I want to scream that I did nothing, that I only walked into the room. But my voice dies in the storm of accusation. The guards rush to the Duke's side, lifting him away. The hall dissolves into chaos, and I feel hundreds of eyes piercing me, stripping me down to a living omen. My knees weaken. Perhaps they are right. Perhaps I truly am a curse. And then, through the confusion, I see him. A man in silver armor stands at the far end of the hall. His presence is steady, calm, almost defiant against the fear that swirls around us. His gaze meets mine. Unlike the others, he does not flinch, does not look away. His eyes are steady, curious, unwavering, and warm in a way I have never known. I cannot breathe. Who is he? This knight who dares to look at me as though I am not a curse, but something entirely different. At that moment, I realize my story is about to change. Though at that moment, I could not yet name the reason. All I knew was the look in his eyes, in a hall where fear clung to me like chains. This knight, tall, broad-shouldered, his armor catching the torchlight like liquid fire, did not look away. While others recoiled, whispering prayers under their breath, he stood unmoving. As if daring the curse, they feared to touch him. The crowd shifted, their voices rising like the hiss of serpents. "Keep her away. Hide her from sight. She has doomed us." I wanted to shrink, to vanish. But the knight's gaze anchored me. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not as an omen, but as something human. Then the moment was broken. The king, my father, rose from his throne. His voice boomed across the hall. "Enough! The feast shall continue. The Duke will recover." His tone was iron, yet his eyes lingered on me with weariness. A silent plea. "Please, do not bring more shame upon us tonight." I bowed my head, ashamed, though I had done nothing wrong. My mother, no, my stepmother, watched with a thin smile at the corner of her lips. A smile that said she was glad the court had one more reason to despise me. I slipped away from the hall, my footsteps echoing down the marble corridor. The music behind me began again, forced and uneasy, as though joy itself feared to breathe in my presence. In the quiet of my chamber, I sank to the floor, pressing my hands against my chest. Why must I exist like this? Every festival, every gathering, every life I touch seems to wither, and yet his eyes, that night, that stranger who had not flinched. Who was he? Why did his gaze feel like a hand reaching through the darkness I had lived in for so long? The next morning, I discovered his name whispered among the guards. Sir Cedric, a knight sent from the neighboring kingdom, sworn to keep peace between our thrones. They spoke of his valor, of the way he carried himself like a man who feared nothing, not blade, not storm, not curse. But would he fear me? Later that day, as I wandered the gardens alone, I felt it again, that steady gaze. Turning, I found him standing near the rose arbor, helm tucked beneath his arm, the sunlight weaving gold into his hair. For a heartbeat, I froze. My heart raced, louder than the rustle of the wind. I should have turned away. I should have hidden as I always did. But instead, I held his gaze, and he smiled, not a cruel smile. Not a mocking one. A smile that carried warmth I had long forgotten existed. My breath caught. Something inside me shifted, fragile yet undeniable. For the first time in my life, I dared to wonder perhaps I am not cursed after all. Asterisk, yet the thought itself felt dangerous. Like fire in my chest warming, but ready to consume me if I dared believe too much. That smile. I carried it with me long after I returned to my chamber. It lingered in my mind as I sat alone at supper, with only the echo of clattering dishes for company. It haunted me when I tried to sleep, when the whispers of the servants drifted through my door. Did you see how he looked at her? Poor knight, he does not know what doom awaits. The next morning, father summoned me. His crown sat heavy on his brow, his hands clasped, as though he bore the weight of 2 kingdoms upon his shoulders. He spoke without looking at me. You must tread carefully, child. Rumors spread faster than wildfire. One misplaced glance and peace itself may tremble. His words pierced deeper than any blade. I wanted to shout that it was not my fault, that all I had done was exist. But I lowered my eyes, swallowing the ache in my throat. When I left the throne room, my stepmother awaited me in the corridor. Her gown shimmered like the wings of a raven, her smile as sharp as glass. Did you enjoy last night's attention? She asked sweetly, though venom dripped from every word. The knight seems unafraid. For now, her hand brushed my arm, a faint gesture of affection. But be careful, dear. Even the bravest men learn to fear curses eventually. Her words wrapped around me like chains. Yet when I stepped into the palace courtyard, I found him again, Sir Cedric. He was speaking to the guards, but when he saw me, he inclined his head in a gesture so respectful, so ordinary, that it nearly brought tears to my eyes. I should have walked away. I should have hidden. But something stronger pulled me forward. Good morning, my lady, he said, his voice calm, unshaken. No one had greeted me so simply in years. Not as a monster, not as a burden, just as myself. I tried to answer, but my voice trembled. Good morning, Sir Cedric, his smile returned, steady as sunlight through storm clouds. In that moment, I realized how starved I had been, not for riches, not for power, but for the simplest of kindnesses. And yet, even as hope stirred within me, I felt the weight of the court's eyes pressing down from the windows above. Servants paused, nobles whispered, shadows lingered. Every step I took beside him would feed the fire of gossip. Still, for the first time in my life, I chose not to care. Asterisk, but the court cared. Oh, how they cared! That evening, another grand feast was held to honor our guests. The hall was drenched in golden light, with banners swaying above and music swelling like waves against the shore. Laughter rang through the chamber, until I entered. As always, the joy faltered. Eyes slid toward me, voices hushed, and smiles froze as though a shadow had passed over the moon. I walked with practiced grace, though my heart throbbed like a drum in my chest. Then it happened. A single candle, high upon the iron chandelier, snapped loose from its holder. It fell, spinning through the air, flames trailing like a serpent's tongue. Gasps echoed as it struck the edge of the royal carpet. The fire flared, hungry and swift. Panic burst across the hall. Nobles stumbled back, skirts and boots tangling as shouts filled the air. And then the whispers rose sharp, poisonous, inevitable. It's her! The curse has struck again. Keep her away. My breath faltered. My chest constricted. I wanted to cry out that I had done nothing, but who would believe me? And then Sir Cedric moved, calm as a mountain against the storm.
He seized the fallen candle, stamping the fire beneath his boot until the flames shriveled into smoke.
His voice rang steady above the chaos. Negligence caused this, not a curse. Blame carelessness, not an innocent maiden. The hall fell silent. Faces turned toward him, eyes wide at his defiance. No one had ever spoken for me so boldly. Not even my father. My lips parted, yet no sound escaped. My heart, my cursed, fragile heartbeat with a wild rhythm, half fear, half awe. He had defended me. in front of them all, but even as relief flooded my chest, I saw the venom in my stepmother's gaze from across the hall. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, as if she had been waiting for this moment, and suddenly I understood. The whispers would not fade. They would grow louder, sharper. And this time, they would not only target me, they would come for him too. Asterisk, I felt it in the chill of the air, in the sharp curve of my stepmother's smile as the feast ended and the torches dimmed. That night, I was summoned to her chamber. The corridor stretched endlessly, lined with tapestries of kings and queens who stared down at me as though judging my every step. My heart pounded. When I entered, she was waiting by the window. Her gown the color of midnight, her jewels glittering like stars. She did not turn as she spoke. "You draw him near," she said softly. Too softly. My throat tightened. I do not lie to me. Her voice cut like frost. She turned then, her eyes sharp as glass. "The night looks at you as though you are more than a curse. And that child is dangerous." I lowered my gaze, hands trembling against my gown. "I never asked for his kindness." She stepped closer, her perfume sweet yet suffocating. Kindness turns to devotion. Devotion turns to rebellion. And rebellion? She let the word hang, like a blade above my neck. "You could bring ruin not only upon yourself, but upon him. If you care for this knight at all, you will keep him away." Her warning clung to me long after I fled her chamber. But fate is cruel. That very night, as I wandered the palace gardens seeking solace, I heard the low rustle of footsteps. I turned, and there he was. Sir Cedric stood beneath the moonlight, his armor set aside, the silver of his tunic catching the glow. He bowed his head gently. "Forgive me, my lady, if I intrude. I feared you might be alone." For a moment I could not speak. The permissary's warning echoed in my mind. "If you care for him, keep him away." But my heart betrayed me. "You are brave," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Braver than you should be. Do you not fear me?" His eyes, steady and unwavering, found mine. "I fear many things: failure, dishonor, the cruelty of men. But I do not fear you." My breath caught, and then with a gentleness that shattered me, he added, "I believe you are not cursed. I believe you are extraordinary." The night stilled. The world itself seemed to pause. And in that fragile silence, I felt the impossible hope blooming in the very heart where despair had long made its home. Yet hope is a fragile thing, and mine shattered with the very next dawn. Whispers reached my chamber before the sun fully rose, whispers of letters, carried across borders, sealed with the crest of Cedric's homeland. The servants spoke of them as though they carried fire, secret reports sent in haste, filled with words that no one dared repeat. My chest tightened. Reports? About what? About whom? That evening I found him in the library, a place I thought was mine alone. He stood by the tall shelves, his hands resting on a parchment he quickly slid into his satchel as I entered. His eyes lifted to mine, steady, but shadowed with something I had not seen before: hesitation. "Sir Cedric," I said, my voice softer than I intended. "Tell me the truth. Why are you here?" For a moment, silence pressed between us, heavy and merciless. Then he drew a slow breath. "At first, I was sent to watch you." The words cut like glass. My knees weakened, and I gripped the edge of a chair to keep myself from falling. "To watch me," I whispered. "Because of the curse?"
His gaze did not waver.
"Because of the fear surrounding it. My king demanded answers, whether you truly carried a fate that could doom kingdoms." I felt the room spin. Every kindness, every smile, every word he had given me, was it all duty? A mask worn by a loyal knight? My throat ached. "So I was never a person to you, only a task." "No!" His voice sharpened with urgency, as though he feared I would slip away forever. He stepped closer, the distance between us trembling like a fragile bridge. "At first, yes, I was a watchman, but now I am yours, if you will have me." Tears blurred my vision. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to hold on to that fragile hope, even as doubt clawed at my chest. But somewhere deep inside, a warning stirred. If the truth of his mission were to reach the wrong ears, it would not be me alone who suffered. he too would be branded. Perhaps worse. And yet, as he knelt before me, lowering his proud head as though in surrender, I felt my heart whisper treacherously, "Trust him, even if it destroys you." That reckless whisper guided me in the days that followed. And soon I found myself seeking him more than the air I breathed. We walked together in the gardens, where roses climbed the stone walls like secrets longing to be told. His laughter, quiet, unguarded, was a sound so rare in my world that I clung to it as if it might vanish. He told me of his homeland, rolling green fields, rivers that gleamed like silver, festivals where music never ceased until dawn, and I told him of my prison, my tower of silk and marble, gilded yet suffocating. To my surprise, he did not pity me. Instead, he listened, truly listened, as though every word mattered. For the first time in my life, I felt alive, but happiness, like a flame, always draws the wind. I noticed the glances first maids who paused too long when passing the garden, guards who shifted uneasily at the sight of us standing too close. Then, one afternoon, as Cedric read aloud from an old tale in the library, I heard it, the faint creak of the door, the hush of a breath not our own. Someone was listening. I stiffened. "Did you hear that?" Cedric lowered the book, his hand brushing instinctively toward his sword before he stopped, remembering this was not a battlefield but a nest of courtiers and spies. His eyes swept the shelves. But whoever lingered in the shadows was gone. The unease lingered long after. That evening, as the candles burned low, one of the younger maids slipped into my chamber. Her face was pale, her voice barely a whisper. "My lady, forgive me, but I must warn you. The queen knows. She knows about the night." My blood turned to ice. The maid's eyes brimmed with fear as she continued. "She says your closeness is dangerous. That if he stays near you, the curse will spread to him. She will not let it go on." The girl fled before I could speak, leaving only the echo of her words behind. I sat in silence, my heart torn between terror and defiance. For though every shadow in the palace seemed to sharpen against me, a single truth had taken root in my chest, unshakable. I could not let him go. Not now. Not ever, but the palace walls have ears. And love, no matter how quietly kept, cannot be hidden forever. By morning, the whispers had already spread. Servants carried them from kitchen to corridor. Guards exchanged them between shifts, and by dusk, the streets of the capital buzzed with tales more poisonous than truth. They say the Cursed Maiden will wed the foreign knight. No, she seeks to drag his kingdom into ruin with her curse. Foolish man, to fall for eyes that doom all who look upon them. I heard these words not from strangers, but from courtiers who did not realize I stood behind the silk drapery, listening as my own fate was woven from lies. That evening, father summoned me. His voice, usually thunderous with command, trembled like a tired storm. "Daughter," he said, "do you understand what danger these rumors bring? Peace between kingdoms hangs by a thread, and your name has become the blade that threatens to cut it." I tried to speak, to defend myself, but the weight of his disappointment crushed the words in my throat. I bowed my head, though tears burned behind my eyes. When I left the throne room, Cedric was waiting in the shadow of a pillar.
His eyes searched mine, reading the sorrow I could not hide.
"They spoke against you, didn't they?" he murmured. I shook my head, but my voice broke as I whispered, "They do not see me as a person, Cedric. Only as a curse that walks." For a heartbeat, silence stretched between us. Then he stepped closer, his hand brushing against mine, not daring, not demanding, but steady, like an oath unspoken. "If the world calls you cursed," he said softly, "then let me be the man foolish enough to bless the curse." My breath caught. My tears fell freely then, not from despair, but from the unbearable sweetness of his defiance. Yet as I leaned into that fragile comfort, I felt its eyes watching from the shadows. And when I turned, I caught the faint shimmer of a gown retreating down the corridor. The queen, she had seen. And when the queen sees, the court obeys, for her whispers are more deadly than any blade by dawn. The rumor had changed its skin. No longer was it a tale of pity or candlelit became accusation. They say the knight feigns devotion only to steal her curse. No. Worse, they say his king sent him to harness her power, to wield it as a weapon. Love? Ha! It is treachery disguised as affection. Each word spread like wildfire, and soon even the stone walls seemed to breathe suspicion. I tried to ignore it, to cling to Cedric's steady presence, but the seed of doubt had been planted. What if they were right? What if his vows, his smiles, his tender words were not for me, but for the mission he carried? That evening, I met him in the garden beneath the old willow tree where the world felt far away. He greeted me with warmth, yet I searched his eyes for cracks I had never dared to see before. "Why do you look at me so?" he asked gently. My voice trembled. "Tell me truly, Cedric. Do you stand beside me because your heart wills it, or because your king commands it?" For the first time, his face faltered. His lips parted, then closed again. Silence stretched, heavy as stone. The doubt twisted inside me, cruel and merciless. Tears stung my eyes, and I turned away. Perhaps they were right all along. Perhaps I am nothing but a curse, and you, a knight who pities me. "Stop," he said, his hand reaching for mine, though I pulled it back. His voice cracked, raw and earnest. "You are not a curse. You are the only truth I have found in this place of masks." His words should have soothed me, but the queen's venom lingered. I wanted to believe him. I ached to believe him, but shadows coiled in my heart, whispering treachery, and as I walked away from him that night, my chest burning with both love and fear, I caught sight of the queen standing at the balcony above. She did not speak. She did not need to. Her smile told me everything. The poison had taken root. And poison, once sown in whispers, always blooms in the mouths of the many. The first sign came with the rain. Weeks of storms tore through the kingdom, drowning the fields and rotting the grain. When the skies finally cleared, the harvest lay ruined. Golden stalks of wheat blackened with decay. The people did not see the storm. They saw me. Crowds gathered outside the palace gates, their cries rising like thunder. "Banish the Cursed Maiden! She has doomed our bread, our children, our lives. Drive her away, before all hope withers." From the balcony, I looked down at them, faces twisted not with fear, but with hatred. Hatred sharp enough to cut deeper than any blade. My knees shook. My breath faltered. In that moment, I wondered if perhaps they were right. Perhaps my very existence was the cause of their suffering. Father stood beside me, his jaw set, his hands gripping the stone railing. He wanted to protect me, I knew, but even he could not silence the cries of thousands. My stepmother lingered in the shadows behind us, her eyes glinting with triumph, for she had won the hearts of the people without speaking a single word. I fled the balcony, tears burning my cheeks. I ran through the corridors until I found myself in the chapel garden, alone until Cedric appeared. He caught my trembling hands in his voice fierce though soft enough for only me to hear. "Do not believe them. Storms come and go, but you are not the sky. You're not the ruin of crops or the death of harvests, but Cedric." My voice cracked, breaking like glass. "Their hatred is louder than your words, louder than my own heart. If they demand I be cast out, what power have I to stay?" He drew closer, his forehead brushing mine, his breath steady against my trembling lips. "Then let me take you away, tonight. We can leave these walls, these chains of lies. Let the world curse us. What matters is that we choose one another." For a moment, hope flickered again, fragile yet blinding. The thought of freedom, of life beyond marble prisons, pulled at me with aching temptation. But then I saw Father's weary face in my mind, the weight of the crown upon his brow, the kingdom trembling on the edge of ruin. To leave him, to abandon everything. My heart tore in two, and though Cedric's arms wrapped around me like a promise, all I could whisper was, "I cannot." The words slipped from my lips like shards of glass, cutting not only my heart but his as well. Cedric froze, his arms still around me, as though unwilling to let go even as the truth struck him. Slowly, he pulled back, his eyes searching mine with an ache so raw it silenced the world around us. "You would rather stay in chains?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "You would rather let them destroy you piece by piece than walk with me to freedom?" Tears blurred my vision. "It is not about chains. It is about duty. My father, my people, they may hate me, but still I belong to them. How can I abandon them to ruin? His jaw tightened, and for the first time, I saw not only tenderness in his face, but fury at the injustice, at my resignation. You speak of belonging, yet they do not claim you. They cast you out with their every breath. You are willing to bleed for those who would never weep for you. His words struck deep, too deep, for they echoed the secret truth I had buried all my life. Yet still I shook my head, clinging to the fragile thread of loyalty that bound me to this kingdom. I cannot, I whispered again. Weaker this time, Cedric turned away, his cloak whipping like a wounded banner in the wind. For a heartbeat, I feared he would leave me there, shattered beneath the willow tree. But then he stopped, his back still to me, his voice low but heavy with promise. If you choose to stay, then so be it. But know this, I will not watch them break you. If they come for you, if they dare lay claim to your fate, I will defy them all. And with that, he walked away, leaving me trembling in the twilight, torn between the fire of his devotion and the cold weight of my crown. Above us, unseen, the queen lingered once more, her eyes narrowing with satisfaction. For every tear that fell from my eyes, her smile grew sharper, because she knew a divided heart is the easiest to destroy. Asterisk and soon. The queen's smile would find its perfect stage. It began with sickness. A strange fever spread through the villages, stealing strength from the young and old alike. Healers could not explain it, but the people did not seek answers. They sought someone to blame. Once more, their voices rose like fire against me. It is her curse. Cast her out, and the fever will break. Save us from the Maiden of Ruin. The cries reached the palace, and with them came fear sharper than steel. Guards doubled their watch, servants avoided my gaze, and father, my steadfast father, could no longer meet my eyes without sorrow weighing his shoulders. One night, he called me to his chamber. The candles burned low, their flames trembling as though they too feared his words. My daughter, he said, his voice broken, the people demand a sign. They wish to see you alone, unguarded beneath the open sky. They believe if you are pure, the sickness will fade. If not, I understood the words he could not speak. If not, they would rise against me, terror clawed at my chest. To stand before them, thousands of eyes filled with hatred, was to place my life in their hands. Yet how could I refuse? To deny them was to confirm their darkest fears. When I left father's chamber, Cedric was waiting in the corridor, his jaw set in a storm of anger. He must have heard. They mean to offer you a sacrifice, he hissed. They would rather see you shattered than face their own misfortunes. I reached for his hand, my voice trembling. What choice do I have, Cedric? If I do not face them, the kingdom will fall into chaos. His eyes burned, a fire barely caged. Then I will stand with you. Before the people, before the queen, before the world itself, I will not let you face their hatred alone. My heart ached at his vow, a bittersweet balm against the terror consuming me. Yet in the corner of my mind, the queen's cold smile lingered, sharper than any blade, for she knew this public trial would not reveal truth. It would only tighten the noose around my neck. Asterisk, and yet the day came when the noose was tied, and I was led to the courtyard where thousands had gathered. The square overflowed with Bada's merchants. Peasants, soldiers, mothers clutching their children, all eyes fixed upon me as though I were not flesh and bone, but omen incarnate. Murmurs swirled like restless winds, curses, prayers, and doubts tangled into one suffocating storm. I stood upon the dais, the weight of their hatred pressing down on me more heavily than the jeweled circlet on my brow. My hands trembled, though I hid them within my sleeves. Father sat upon his throne, pale and weary, while the queen hovered at his side, her face serene, her smile cold enough to freeze the very air. Beside me stood Cedric, resolute as ever. His presence was a shield I could neither deserve nor abandon. The herald raised his voice, echoing across the square. People of the realm, today your maiden stands before you. Speak and let her fate be known. The crowd erupted. Some cried for mercy, others for exile, others still for a punishment too cruel to name. Their voices battered me from every side until I could scarcely breathe. Then a child's voice cut through the storm. She made the rains come. A little girl stood on her father's shoulders, her tiny hands clasped together. She saved us from the drought last year. Do not hurt her. A hush rippled through the crowd, fragile but real. My heart lurched hope, flickering like a candle in the wind, but the queen's voice rang out, smooth as silk yet sharp as a blade. Or was it her curse that brought the drought in the first place? Gasps followed. The hope shattered, and all eyes returned to me, burning, demanding. My knees weakened. I wanted to run, to vanish, to become nothing at all. But Cedric's hand brushed against mine, steady and unyielding. His whisper reached me through the roar. Speak, let them hear your heart. Even if they refuse it, let them know who you are. I drew a trembling breath, my voice rising over the tumult, raw and bare. I am no curse, I cried. I am flesh, I am heart, I am your daughter, your sister, your kin. I have wept as you wept, feared as you feared. If misfortune has touched us, then let it touch me first, but do not call me the storm when I too have been broken by its winds. For a heartbeat, silence reigned, then the crowd roared again, not with clarity, but with division. Half cried for mercy, half cried for my end. And in the midst of it all, I saw Father bury his face in his hands, while the queen's smile widened. Victorious. Because in their eyes, no matter my words, I had already lost. And so the weight of their judgment fell not on me, but on my father's weary shoulders. That night, the council chamber was suffocating with voices. Nobles demanded my exile, priests urged my confinement, and generals whispered of sending me away to distant monasteries for the safety of the realm. Father sat in silence, his crown heavy as though forged from chains. At last, he raised his hand, silencing them all. His voice trembled, yet carried the force of law. She is my daughter. She will not be harmed, but she must be kept apart, away from the people until this storm passes. The words struck me harder than any sword. Not harmed, but hidden. Not cast out, but caged. Again, always again, Cedric's fury erupted like thunder. You would lock her away for the crime of existing? You would condemn her to solitude to appease fear and lies. Gasps filled the chamber. No knight had ever spoken so to a king. Yet Cedric did not kneel, did not waver. His eyes blazed, not with defiance toward the crown, but with devotion to me. The queen stepped forward then, her silk gown whispering against the stone floor, her lips curved in triumph. Your Majesty, she purred, the knight reveals his true nature. He is no loyal servant, but a rebel who seeks to bind the maiden to his will. Can you not see? His devotion is but a mask. Her words coiled around the chamber like smoke, poisoning every ear. Nobles murmured in agreement. Priests nodded gravely. Even Father's eyes, clouded with doubt, flickered toward Cedric with suspicion. No, I cried, stepping forward, my voice breaking. He has stood by me when no one else dared. He has been my shield, my light. But before I could finish, Father's hand rose once more. His gaze swept over us both, heavy with sorrow. Enough. If you remain together, you will destroy not only yourselves, but the fragile peace we hold. Cedric, you will leave at dawn. And my daughter? She will return to her chambers until the will of the heavens is made clear. The chamber fell silent. My heart shattered. Cedric's hand clenched into a fist at his side, his jaw rigid with restrained rage. He turned to me then, his eyes meeting mine across the gulf of power and chains. I will not leave you, he whispered fiercely, though only I could hear. Even if it cost me everything. The queen's smile deepened, for she knew the king's verdict had done what her whispers alone could not. It had torn us apart. Asterisk, and in that tearing, the queen found her victory swift. Merciless, complete. At dawn, Cedric was taken to the stables, his armor stripped, his sword seized. He was no longer Sir Cedric, Knight of Honor, but a man cast out, branded with suspicion. I watched from my window as he struggled against the guards, his eyes never leaving mine. I will return for you, he shouted, his voice breaking the morning stillness. No crown, no chains, no lies will keep me from you. His vow seared into my heart, even as the gates closed behind him. I pressed my trembling hands against the glass, wishing I could shatter it, wishing I could run to him. But the doors of my chamber were locked, the corridors outside swarming with watchful eyes, days blurred into nights. The people outside demanded my exile still, sickness continued to spread, and the queen's whispers only grew sharper. My father, weary and frail, began to falter beneath the weight of his crown, and me? I was forgotten, sealed away like a relic too dangerous to touch, until one night. The queen came to me. She entered my chamber without a sound, her silk gown trailing like shadows across the floor. She carried no crown, no guard, no mask of pretense, only that smile, sharp and certain. "My dear," she said softly, "you are the reason this kingdom trembles. But I am merciful. I will give you a way to end this suffering." I dared not speak, for her words already chilled me. Leave, disappear from this kingdom, from his life, from everything. If you go willingly, the people will be soothed, the sickness will fade, and Cedric will live. If you stay, her eyes gleamed, then he will be hunted, branded a traitor. His name will rot in every song, every tale, every prayer. My breath caught. The room spun. To leave was to carve Cedric from my heart. To stay was to doom him. Tears welled in my eyes, falling hot against my trembling hands. For the first time, I realized there was no path where love and duty could walk together. There was only one final choice. And as the queen slipped from the chamber, leaving me alone with the weight of it, I whispered into the silence, which pain must I choose, the pain of losing him, or the pain of destroying him? Asterisk, the answer came not as a whisper, but as a fire that rose from deep within me. Neither, I would choose neither. No longer would I bend beneath the weight of fear and lies. No longer would I let my name be twisted into chains. If love was my curse, then let it be the curse that shattered their thrones of deceit. At dawn, I dressed not in the silks they gave me, but in a plain cloak. My heart pounded as I slipped past the guards, through corridors I had memorized since childhood. Each step carried me closer to the stables, where I prayed Cedric had not yet been forced beyond reach. And there he was, bound to leave, his face shadowed with despair. When his eyes met mine, they widened with disbelief. You came? "I will not let them decide our fate," I said, my voice trembling but fierce. "If the world calls me cursed, then let us bear the curse together. If they call you traitor, then I will be your crime. But I will not lose you, Cedric. Not now, not ever." For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then his arms closed around me, fierce and unyielding, as though he feared I might vanish if he let go. His whisper burned against my ear. "Then let us defy them all." We rode out at dawn, the gates unguarded for the first time, perhaps by chance, perhaps by fate. Behind us the palace bells tolled, calling my name with fury. Ahead of us lay forests, rivers, and the vast unknown, but I did not look back. For the first time, the chains that bound me were gone, broken not by exile nor by decree, but by choice. My choice, the queen's whispers would follow. The people's hatred would echo. Yet love had given me the strength to rise above both, and as Cedric's hand clasped mine upon the reins, I knew the story they had written for me was no longer mine to live. I was no curse. I was freedom. I was love unbroken. Asterisk, and so our journey began, not as knight and maiden, not as prisoner and guardian, but as two souls who had chosen each other against the will of crowns and kingdoms. The forests welcomed us with silence, the rivers with endless song. Each sunrise brought fear of pursuit, yet each sunset carried the quiet triumph of survival. Cedric's laughter, once scarce, grew warmer beside me. My heart, once chained, now dared to dream, but freedom is never without cost. I left behind marble halls and jeweled chambers, my father's weary eyes, the weight of a crown I never asked to bear. I left behind a kingdom that would remember me not as daughter, not as maiden, but as curse. Yet in leaving, I found myself, and I learned that love, true love, is not the tale of perfect endings, but of imperfect people who choose one another again and again, even when the world calls it folly. One night, beneath a sky strewn with stars brighter than any torchlit court, Cedric took my hand and whispered, "They will tell stories of us, you know. Of the cursed maiden and the reckless knight." I smiled, tears shining in my eyes. "Then let them. Let them twist it as they will. For we know the truth, he pressed his forehead to mine. And in that moment, the world was silent, as if even fate itself bowed to our defiance. And if you, who hear my tale now, ever find yourself bound by chains of fear, by whispers that seek to name you as curse or burden, remember this, you are not their story. You are your own. And love the kind worth fighting for is never a curse. It is the greatest freedom of all.